In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove and replace the front fender on this Ford F-150. I will be showing you the passenger side, but the same procedure applies to the driver's side. If anything, it'll be a little bit easier because you don't have to remove the antenna. Let's get started. The first thing we want to do is remove this push clip up here, which holds this shield on. As you can see, it's got a Phillips head cutout on it, so try to unscrew it. A lot of times they don't unscrew because it's, well, old and brittle and plastic and it just doesn't work like it should, but it should have some threads on it. Once you get it mostly out, you should be able to remove it completely, and then the rest of this push clip should pull right out, and then you'll be able to push this aside. Behind that shield, a 10mm bolt is hiding. Remove it. And on top of the headlight, 2 more 10mm bolts. They're all the same. With those off, the only thing holding this headlight in are 2 clips on this side, which I'll show you in a little. But to remove it, you want to pull it out. And the best way to do this is to just yank it all of a sudden. That'll break these clips free. There's not much you can do to get back there. There we go. And these are them right here, this one and this one. As you can see, they just snap into the fender. On the back side, we have some electrical connectors for bulbs. The turn signal / running light bulb, I'm going to twist counterclockwise and remove. For the main headlight bulb, I'm not going to take the bulb out. I'm just going to disconnect the connector because we will not be reusing this bulb. Last one is going to be this marker light. Twist this one too counterclockwise and pull it out. Now with the headlights off, let's start in the center and work our way towards the side. Now I'm only going to show you one side, and you'll just have to do the same to the other side because it's a mirror image. So in the center here, right by the hood release lever, we have 2 8mm bolts. Remove both of them. Because I'm moving my way towards the passenger side, I'm going to go to the left of where we just were, but of course, like I said, you would do the same to the driver's side. So I'm going to remove this 10mm bolt right here. Do the same to the other side. And now if you look right behind where the headlight was, where the fender meets the bumper cover assembly here, there are several 10mm fasteners. You'll see 2 of them here. There will be one further down. I'll show you that one in a second, but let's remove these 2 for now. So this first one you can get through right here. If you have an air ratchet or some other power tool that fits, it'll be a lot easier because you don't have to swing it back and forth. Okay, now the next one down we'll have to get from the inside of the fender well. So stick your tool in there and remove it. This is definitely where it comes in handy to have an air ratchet or an electric one. And if you keep following the bumper cover assembly right here, you'll see a few more 10mm fasteners. There are 2 mounting nuts on the side. They secure the fender flare onto the bumper cover, and then there's a 10mm bolt that goes right through at the top here through the fender. We have to take all of them out, so it doesn't matter which one you start with. Okay, there's the bolt. All right, so that's 2 of them. As you can see, the fender flare now pulls away. Last fastener that we have to remove is this one right here. It's a 10mm bolt that secures the bumper cover bracket. It's right in this little cutout. And once you take that out, you should be able to pull this away, just like so. There we go. Now back up top, where we removed the 10mm bolts right after the first couple, you'll see this tab right here that you can press down. And once you press that down, it'll release the entire bumper cover bracket, and that'll be the last thing holding this on. And with that released, you should be able to pull this out and away, just like this. To continue unbolting the fender, there's going to be an 8mm bolt right here that connects this bracket arm piece to the lower radiator support. So remove that. Let's continue by removing the fender liner so we can get the fender off. There's a push clip here at the front. If you just pry on the fender liner, this should pop out. 2 more push clips all the way at the top of the fender liner. Get both of these out as well. Okay. Now let's remove all of these accessories, wires, and other things that are connected on the backside of the fender liner. You just reach behind, there should just be a connector on most of them that you can grab onto and pry away. If you look at the top of the fender liner where it meets the fender flare, or on the edge here, there are going to be several 5.5mm screws. This one is towards the front. Take this out. Looking back towards the door, you'll see another one right here. And there should be a push clip underneath here. Mine is missing, but if you pull this away, you'll see two more 5.5mm screws. And now, all we have to do is move this around until we can pull it out of here. Usually you'd want to push it back down and then pull away. There we go. Let's remove the push clips that are on the outside of this fender flare. There are two of them, one over here and one further up. You can use just a simple trim tool to do this. A lot of times these do break. There we go. Yep, that one broke. We'll have to install a new one. That's all right. Looking from the back side, right behind the fender liner, this is towards where the door is, you'll see these clips that hold the fender flare on. We're gonna have to squeeze the two tabs on these so you can actually pull this away without damaging anything. I like to do this with needle nose pliers. Just clamp it and pull it away. And just go around the whole thing and remove all of them. All right, take the fender flare off. Next we have to remove this plastic corner piece here. There's gonna be a push clip underneath. Try to get this one out. And I say try because, well, it's probably gonna break. Okay, sometimes cutters do the trick. You have to get this off of here. I'm gonna stick a trim tool and pry it off. Just has a couple retainers that need to pop off. There we go. All right, now let's take these two 8mm bolts out. This should free up the bottom of the fender. At the top of the fender, where it meets the apron, that's what this is called here, it's secured with three 10mm bolts, so let's get all three of these out. Since we're working on the passenger side, we have to remove the antenna. If this was the driver's side, you wouldn't have to. I'm going to take a plastic trim tool, try to get it underneath here, pop this cover off. Okay, slide this up. What we're going to do next is take some pliers, or you can also take a wrench. It's a 10mm cutout here, and you can break the antenna loose. There we go. This wasn't too tight. Usually they are pretty tight, and sometimes they seize in here, so you'll want to work it back and forth if it gets stuck. Hopefully you can get yours to come out. Set this aside, and now you'll need a Phillips head screwdriver to remove this piece off of the fender. There are 3 Phillips head screws, 2 at the front and 1 towards the rear. Remove all 3. Now you can pull this up. Squeeze this 2 little tabs here, pull it down. To finish unplugging the antenna cable, we have to go inside the truck and open up the glove compartment. And you're gonna have to squeeze in both sides like this. Pull the owner's manual out of the way, pull this down, and right back here is gonna be the connector for the antenna, because the wire is gonna have to come out through the fender. Unfortunately, there's no connector out there. So looking back here, you'll see a mess of wiring, but this is actually the wire that we're after. It's right out in the open here. Just pull out on it. Now if we just pop it off of this retainer, It's electrical taped in place. There we go. So at this point, if you look at it, it'll go towards the fender. So let's go back out there and pull it through. And right here through the fender, you see where the cable comes through. So just pull on it, and it should come right out. There it is. And from the top of the fender, we can remove the entire antenna cable through here. Set that aside. I'm going to put one of the bolts in for the fender so that as I unbolt the last couple bolts that actually go through the door jamb, this doesn't fall off. With this bolt here, I mean, it can move around, but it's not going to fall on the ground. Looking between the door and the A-pillar, so right in the door jamb here, you'll see an 8mm bolt right at the top there. We'll have to get to that, and it might look like you can't get to it, but with an extension you actually can, because this is just a rubber seal. There it is. Okay, take this out. The only other bolt holding this fender in is this one at the bottom, and you'll notice that it's coming in from the other side, so from the outside in, and I'll show you exactly where to get to that. If you look inside the fender, you'll see this hole that is filled with foam. If you peel this foam back, I know it's going to be difficult to see right now, but I can just use some pliers. Just make an access hole in the foam. You'll see it, the head of a bolt, and that's the one that sits backwards from the outside in. So let's grab an extension and an 8mm socket, get that bolt out. There it is. So at this point, the fender is held on with my little bolts that I put here just for safety, but it's loose, and then foam. So Ford likes to put a lot of foam on fenders and other body panels. So all we have to do now is pry it away slowly, and it should peel away. There we go. I'll remove my bolt. And there it is. There's your front fender. Now if you had your new fender, you would obviously get it painted or paint it yourself. And then it's time to reinstall it. Be very careful not to scratch up any other paint. Slide it over. And just like when we removed it, I'm going to put a bolt up top here just to hold it in place while I get everything else connected. All right. So now at least it can't fall off. Let's start by putting in the 2 bolts that go inside the A-pillar so we can actually position it properly here. I'm going to tighten this bolt that I put in that I wanted to hold the fender with, because I don't want it to move in and out like this. I want it held on tight, and I know that for me, I actually have these marks here because I'm reusing my original fender, but if you have a new one, you're not going to have these marks. What you can do though is just kind of eyeball it temporarily, and of course we're going to have to come back here, loosen and adjust, but for now I wanted to stop doing this so I can bolt up the 2 A-pillar bolts. Perfect. This also gives us now a point of pivot so it can move around it. So now back underneath here, let's get the bolt in that holds the fender on the bottom. Try to get it as lined up as possible. Keep in mind that we will most likely have to come back to certain fasteners and loosen them up, readjust the fender, and then tighten them back up. So get it as close as possible as you can right off the bat, but it's not out of the question to have to come back and adjust things to make everything line up properly. Okay, make this nice and snug. If you don't plan on coming back here to loosen this up, well, yeah, it's not like you'll know until the end, but if you think it's perfect, just make sure it's nice and snug so that we can move on. Now let's get the bolt in from the inside through the door jamb here. Okay, what I have to do now is actually push the fender in a little bit, but first I'm going to see if I can actually pull it in by pulling on the tool. Okay. So I'm going to look at my mark here, see if it lines up with what it was before. It looks like it's a little bit to the right, but I'm going to leave it here, see if I can adjust it elsewhere. If not, I'll have to come back here, but basically this is tight. Let's move on. What you're looking for is this gap right here, which actually right on the A-pillar, it looks perfect. It looks the same as the driver's side. I already double checked, so we might actually be perfectly lined up here. The windshield cowl sits very nicely here. It's lined up, it's even across. That's what you're looking for, is just even gaps across, or well, no gaps in this case. The seal is sitting nice and flat across the fender. With the door closed, you can also see a very even gap all along, and the fender isn't sitting too high or too low. It's perfectly lined up. So I'm actually very happy with this. Let's continue by putting the top bolts in. Get these two back in. If you wanted to put some anti-seize on these, you can. A lot of times these do get corroded. And once again, I'm just going to eyeball it. We might have to come back and adjust, but for now, we'll get it close. We are now at a point where we can lower the hood, check for the gap between the hood and the fender. You want to make sure it's the same as the other side. So I'll bring this down. Actually, this gap is perfect from one end to the other. And looking at the other side, which I know you can't see, but I can, it is symmetrical. It's the same gap, so this actually looks perfect. Let's lift this back up and continue bolting up the fender. Right at the front here, underneath where the headlight would mount, let's resecure the bracket for the fender. From underneath, let's put this piece on, which is just a bracket that allows you to thread in the mounting screws for the antenna. Slide it up. There we go, that's pushed into place. And now we can take the antenna cable and slide that down, just like so. I'm not going to route it yet, I'm just pulling it all the way down and securing it on here. There we go. Reinstall the 3 Phillips head screws. Make sure they're nice and snug, and make sure this gasket here is still in good condition, unless you have a new one. But you can definitely just reuse your old one. All that does is it prevents a lot of water from making its way on the inside of the fender liner and following the antenna cable. That's the main point here. It's not like the inside of the fender doesn't get wet, because it does. The wheel splashes water, but you just don't want water following the antenna cable, because then it'll get inside the car or inside the truck, and well, that's not going to end well. So make this nice and snug. They don't need to be crazy tight, just a little snug. And then might as well put this cap back on while we're at it, just like so, as well as the antenna mast. That's what this is called. Just gonna thread it down all the way until it's bottomed out, and then I'm gonna take my 10mm wrench and just give it a quick snug. Doesn't need to be very tight, just, you know, you don't want it flying off of here. Here's the antenna cable that you can now take and put through this opening, and it should go right behind the dash. Try to aim it to go that way so that you can actually grab it from behind the glove box. And if you have a helper, actually that would be ideal, so that the person on the inside of the truck can grab it and pull it as you slide it through here. There's a grommet. This grommet needs to actually seal up on this opening so that no water gets in. There we go. Press it in tight. As you can see, this is perfect right here. And inside, you can reach in and you'll see it all the way up against the A-pillar, all the way in the back. You can pull the wire through. There it is. Okay. And reconnect it. Make sure it makes a good connection. Otherwise, when you turn on your radio, it's not going to work. My retainer broke off, so I'm just going to wire tie it over here. But if you still have your retainer on, just go ahead and clip it on right into that hole over there on that white retainer. And to close the glove box, simply bring it up, squeeze the sides in. Well, once you squeeze one side, it should be able to close. There we go. And now from underneath, you'll see the 2 holes on the bottom that have to line up over here. Okay, so I'm going to leave it here, and then we'll put the plastic cover over. This just has 2 little clips. One is broken, but the other one is still secured, and then it has the push clips that go on. So resecure this in place. And with this, you can make sure that it all lines up as it should. These over here. And then, of course, with the door, you're going to want to push it in all the way. And now you can tighten these up. Okay, and now you want to take the fender flare, line that up with the push clips, and tap them in. You're going to want to take your fender liner, bring it in, and the best way to get this to line up is to actually push it further than it needs to go, and then kind of hook it up and over the fender. Bring it back, there we go, and line it up. It's got the two mounting points up top, the push clips, and then the ones on the side. Once you have the fender liner somewhat lined up here, I'm going to start with the two push clips that go up top, just because they have a little bit of wiggle room and play to them, so you can actually adjust it to line up the bolts that go around the outside. And since we're here, might as well reattach all the wiring harnesses that get clipped onto the backside. Now they will pretty much be right where they should, just because the wires are already formed to be here, so it shouldn't take a lot of guessing as to where they are. There we go. Let's start with the two mounting screws that go on the back side at the bottom. Start those in and snug these up. At the bottom there will be two push clips to be reinstalled, one over here and then one right over here. Okay, and another one, if you follow the fender flare up, resecure this one and keep going even further, and you'll see that one right over there. All right, now let's put back the mounting screws on the side here. And now it'll be time to reinstall the bumper cover assembly. So I'll just roughly line it up, because we'll need to do some fine tuning here before it can actually slide in. The first of which is going to be this area where it has to slide into the radiator support. Clip it in like that. This will hold it in place temporarily. Now when it comes to this corner, you're going to want to tuck the bumper cover under, but also make sure that everything lines up. As you can see, it has these two pins here, and then underneath it has to line up also. There we go. Has to be nice and flush. And then you'll want to resecure the fender flare. Now we can bolt everything back up. Put these bolts through. This center one is going to be the trickiest one of them all. I think what I'm going to do is actually just drive it in, or guide it in with the air ratchet directly. Snug them up. A few more things to be put back here. There's going to be this bolt right on the corner, and then the two mounting nuts that hold the fender flare onto the fender itself. Tighten them all up. And then there was one last bolt right over here in this cutout that secured the bumper cover bracket to the fender. Let's put back this bolt over here that goes kind of underneath the headlight. And the last two over here, right by the hood latch release lever. Line up the socket. Once it falls in, turn it clockwise, and it should lock in. Now let's do the same for the rest of the bulbs. Once it lines up, slide it down and turn it clockwise to lock it in. And we are left with the turn signal / running light bulb. Slide this one in as well, and turn it clockwise until it stops. There we go, all the bulbs are lined up. Now just line up those two tabs with the fender, bring the headlight in. Once you feel it slide in, tap it, and it should lock into place. At the top, let's put the two mounting screws back, tighten them up, and put this one back. That was underneath this rubber flap here. Now line up this push clip, slide it through. You can pull the center out if you need to. If it doesn't fit, then push the center back in all the way, and there you have it. At the end of this video, you'll see how to adjust your headlights properly, which you'll want to do, and to adjust them, you have an adjustment screw that goes right through this opening, so that's where you'd use a Phillips head screwdriver and aim the beam up or down.
Now we're going to get the vehicle ready to aim the headlights. Start with the tire pressure, making sure all 4 tires are set at the appropriate pressure. Remove any excessive weight that's not normally in the vehicle. Find a wall that you can drive up to where the ground is level. Measure 25 feet away from that wall and mark the ground. Drive your vehicle up to that mark. With the headlights off, look for the center dot in the headlight lens. Measure from the ground to that center dot. You can use a ruler to help you out. Transferring that measurement to the wall, making a mark with some tape. On the driver's side, measure down 4 inches, putting another piece of tape. For the passenger side, you only need to measure down 2 inches. Now turning the headlights on, it is easier to do this at night or in a dark area. Locating your headlight adjuster and using a Phillips head screwdriver, turn your adjuster one way or another to bring the headlight up or down. Once the headlight is adjusted to the tape mark on the wall, move on to the next headlight. If you're confused because the beams seem to blend together, you can always have someone stand in front of the other headlight while you make your adjustments for that one. Now your headlights are aligned and you're all set to go.
So there you have it. I hope this video was helpful. If it was, don't forget to leave a like, and if you have anything to say, leave it in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you can stay up to date with all of our future content. Thanks for watching.